there's a new meat in town. For all intents and purposes, this is a new beef muscle, certainly new to the shack, and from the light research that I've done, it would appear that Google is pretty much in the dark about this muscle too. This muscle is called Brisquetta. And as I said, it's a very enigmatic piece of meat. Very limited information online. The only reason we know about this cut is because of our good friend Alan at Big Al's Barbecue UK, and actually you do want to check his channel out, some really good content on there. And when he first did his video on Brisquetta, we were instantly transfixed. How can this be? A beef muscle that we've never heard of? Have cows evolved? What is this madness? So we began our investigations. As I said, Google knew pretty much nothing, so I got in touch with our butcher, and sure enough, he was as reliable as he always is, and he knew all about it. He said, certainly I can get you a £4 or £5 piece. We picked it up the next day, and here we are, ready to smoke it. Now, why are we so excited about this Brisquetta? Well, from the limited but first-hand information we've managed to gather, it is just as tasty as brisket, just as tender as brisket, considerably cheaper than brisket, and cooks in a fraction of the time. Kind of ticking a lot of boxes there, right? And if you need another box ticked, it's a slightly smaller muscle than the whole brisket itself. It sits just above the point, so it is brisket adjacent. Okay, thanks Outdoor Pit Wizard, but I think we both know someone who can explain this better than we can.
Right.
So you seam off, this is called the pony. This is basically your arm. So that's your forearm, that's this part. This just comes off, and then underneath, this is your whole brisket, but the bit everyone wants, it starts here, so you point at here, and then it comes up like this.
Yeah.
The Brisquetta sits on top of the point, literally here.
Right. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, Outdoor Pit Wizard, back to you. And because it's near that point end, it has a reasonable amount of fat, which means it's going to be nice and tender and juicy, and they are generally smaller than a whole brisket as well, which means if you're serving a smaller gathering, less chance of waste or less chance of having to freeze leftover brisket. But this one, as I said, that I've got is about 4.5–5 pounds post-trim, so we're easily going to be able to feed 8 to 9 people with that. It is not often you discover a new meat when you've been smoking meat as long as we have in the shack, particularly a new meat from such a familiar animal. So I'm really excited for this. Let's switch over to Domesticated Pit Wizard to talk you through all the prep, and let's get this new beast on the smoker. Thanks Feral Pit Wizard, and we'll start by giving this just a simple SPG rub, no binder needed here. And now she's just going to dry brine in our fridge overnight, uncovered. Running the Masterbuilt with some hickory here and setting her to about 250. And we're using the Masterbuilt probe and my meter plus as well, just to make sure we get super accurate temperature readings. and we'll let that bark develop for a couple of hours while we go inside and sort out our spritz, which is just going to be 50% apple cider vinegar, 50% water. And when you attempt to film your first spritz, you find out your spritz bottle is on the fritz. So calmly and with minimal swearing, we simply decant the liquid into a bowl to turn our spritz into a mop. About 5 hours later, and after several mops, we've hit the stall. We're about 165 in temp at the moment, so we're just going to wrap this bruschetta with some tallow. And now we're finally probe tender, so it's time to give this bruschetta a couple of hours rest in our cool box. Alright, there are three main tests that we're going to use to judge this bruschetta in comparison to a normal brisket. The first one is it cheaper? The answer is yes. Considerably cheaper than a brisket. Is it quicker? No. This is now the next day. We expected this to be done in between 5 and 8 hours. 13 hours later, which is about what I'd expect for a brisket of this size, it was ready and rested, but by then it was far too late for us to be eating it or doing any filming or anything like that. So we've held this in a warm oven, so it's safe to eat, it's kept all its tenderness, giving us a good launch pad for the third and arguably the most important test: is it as good? And looking at it here, you got some give there, which I'm pretty happy about. Really good bark. I'm very happy about that. And then let's just check the grain of this meat. So yeah, the grain's going this way, so we want to cut this way. Give it the optimal chance of being tender. Use my trusty dowel strong here. As I'm cutting in here, I just want to say this smells absolutely amazing. We've used a blend of hickory and maple. This is cutting pretty well. That bark's nice and crispy. Okay, the big reveal. So I'm loving that smoke ring. That's looking really good. Let's take a slice. Not sure if the camera's picking this up here, but there's a good amount of moisture on there. That looks nice and juicy. Obviously, we need to do our brisket test. That's pretty perfect, I would say. It's nice. It's got that kind of flop that you want. And of course, we need to do the pull test as well. That pulls quite nicely. I'm pretty impressed with that. Okay, so how does it taste? Well, got a convenient piece here, so cheers. Wow. That's really good. I'm super impressed with that. The fats and I guess the collagen in there, they're melted, but they've held structure. So when you put them in your mouth, they actually melt with the heat of your mouth. So obviously it's all been rendered properly because it's been in low and slow for a long time. But the fact that that holds and then kind of finishes dissolving in your mouth is a really nice experience. And one that I don't normally get with brisket. Normally with brisket, it's all completely rendered, which is obviously delicious. But the fact that this kind of, I don't know, continues rendering as part of the eating process, that's fantastic. Obviously, I'm sure as you can tell just by looking, the smoke flavour is brilliant. The beef flavour is really good. Not quite as pronounced as it is on a brisket, but still really nice, really good. You can tell it's, you know, it's been low and slow smoked. It doesn't taste anything like a pot roast or anything. It's a proper, real deal piece of barbecue meat. I mean, again, you can probably tell by looking, it's more comparable to the flat than it is to the point, and I'm not mad about that. That works for me. And you can see here we've got a little bit of bark. Just going to try that on its own. Cheers. Smoky, meaty, almost caramelized, almost taking on the kind of jerky-like property. Again, that's really nice. I'm not really big on bark. I'd rather, you know, if I had to sacrifice one thing, it would be the bark, and I'd opt for the tenderness instead. But I'm really impressed with the bark on this. This has turned out really well. So how does it compare to a brisket? Flavour, not quite the same, not quite as strong and beefy. Texture, it's definitely there. I wouldn't say it's better. It's slightly different, as I said, with that collagen experience, but that difference is a really nice, surprising experience in itself. Just as good as a brisket, I would say. It takes on the smoke. It stays nice and tender, it develops a nice bark. Yeah, I'd say, is it as good an eating experience as a brisket? That's a tick. That is a really, really good piece of barbecue meat. So the only expectation it didn't live up to was the length of time it takes to cook. 2 out of 3, in the words of Meatloaf, ain't bad. And if I was cooking for a smaller party, I'd have absolutely no problem serving this whatsoever. Calling it a replacement for brisket might be a bit of a stretch, simply because of the flavour differences and, as I said, slightly different textures. But we've discovered a cut of meat that is new to the shack, and as I said, by looking on Google, new to a lot of people.
Ever heard of Brisquetta? Do you mean bruschetta? No, I mean Brisquetta. I'd love to learn more.
So I definitely highly recommend you check this out. And if you do and you manage to source it, please let us know in the comments how the cook goes for you. Let us know what you thought. If you have any problem sourcing it, there's a couple of suppliers that I've managed to find. I'll put links to them somewhere on the screen now, but I'll also put them in the description to this video. I hope you found that useful, maybe even inspiring. And we're always looking for weird, wonderful, new ways of cooking, new things to cook. So drop us a comment and let us know if there's anything you think we should try out here in the shack. Don't forget to follow the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. And also, check us out on Insta, check us out on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we're also on X, and all of our recipes and methods and all of that good stuff you can find on Substack completely free. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.